Missy already? Good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and call this regular meeting to order on Tuesday, June 1st at 10 a.m. We will start the meeting with a Pledge of Allegiance by James Minlev, and after that we'll go with our invocation by Nick Montague. Good morning. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, we are thankful that we're able to come here today, and we're thankful for county leadership who is able to lead us, and we ask Thee to give your Spirit to them, that they will be able to know what is best to do for our county and to help those in need, to make wise decisions, and say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. Let's see. Today on 2, we have a presentation of 2/28/21 Gila County financial data as it compares to the fiscal year 2021 Gila County budget and fiscal year 2020 year-to-date performance. Marion Billings, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, member supervisors. We are here today with February and March. So item 2A is February, item 2B is March. To give you an update, the deadlines just got away from me from agendas. Hopefully April and May will be more timely. As you can see from the February data here on the board, we are $4,167,000 ahead of where we were the same time February of last year. And as of February 28th, we had received 70.45% of the annual budgeted revenues, which is ahead of where the 8-month target of 67% would be. We show further down what the detail of that is. And then in past discussions, you had mentioned wanting to see why our miscellaneous items are $300,000 ahead of the previous year. So that detail is here for you, as you can see on the board. And those are unchanged except for $6,000 from the Secretary of State from our previous presentation. When we look at our bar charts for 8 months year to date, we have on the left where salaries and EREs stack up. The blue bar is your full year budget. The red bar is 2021 year-to-date actual. The green bar is what the 8-month target is, so that's the 67% across the board there. The purple bar shows us where we were a year ago, and the aqua bar, which really needs better color differentiation, is from 2 years ago. Now that we've been doing these presentations for a while, we are able to give you that perspective. So as you can see in salaries and EREs, we are at 54% of budget compared to 67% target, and 57% the year before and 55% the year before that. And the same is true for operating expenses. Our operating expenses are at 54% year to date compared to 67% 8-month target, 61% the year before, and 62% the year before that, which brings our total expenditures, the third clump of bars, to 58% of budget compared to the 67% target. The previous year we were at 62% at 8 months, and in fiscal year 19 we were at 57%. And then as you can see in revenues, that additional $4 million does make a pretty significant difference. Our revenues are running just over 70% year to date compared to the 67% 8-month budget, 57% of revenue was received the prior year at the same point, and 58% the year before that. So that 70% is most likely an anomaly. We should not expect to be at 70% in February next year. So questions on that, or would you like me to move on to March and then we can have questions after both?
Anyone have any questions at this time? Go ahead.
Okay, so going on to item 2B. Sure.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, yeah, then I do have a question on these revenues. Okay,
Yes.
we're at 70%.
Yes.
What is that increase attributed to?
So most of it, 2.3 million of the 4.1 is from property taxes due to increases in centrally assessed values. So that's when the copper mines report to us what their taxable value is. So that is most of it. That's 2.3 million of it. Then we've got an additional 170,000 of interest and penalties on delinquent taxes, and this is on the agenda item, so you don't have to jot them all down while we're going. But
That's fine.
And then excise tax is up 868,000. State shared sales tax is up another 878, and then miscellaneous is up 300,000.
Okay. Yeah, I guess my question is I was hoping growth was the reason for the increase.
Some of it's
revenue.
new construction and growth, but it's largely due to an increase in centrally assessed values.
Okay. Well, I was hoping.
Well, hope is good. And the excise tax and state shared sales, those are indicative of growth. I'm sure County Manager Menlove could speak to that more accurately, but I'm sure 1.7 million extra in sales tax is a good thing.
Okay. Yeah. No. All right. Then we can move on, but I have to read it first.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Then 2B, presentation of 3/31/2021 Gila County financial data as it compares to fiscal year 2021 Gila County budget and fiscal year 2020 year-to-date performance. There you go. Now you can move on.
Okay. So following on the trend from February, we are looking at total year-to-date revenue at the end of March was at 76.13% of budget, and the 9-month target should have been 75%. And as you see that, please know that the second half of property taxes doesn't come in until April, May time. So this is even without that second half of property taxes coming in, that we were at the end of March 4.257 million more than the same time year to date in 2020. Again, those key components are property taxes. That makes up almost half of it. Interest and penalties on the delinquent taxes. Excise tax at the end of March was still up 600,000 over the previous year. State shared sales tax slowed down a little bit. At the end of March, it was only 278,000 more than the prior year, but that's still pretty amazing considering that the gap, the span in between those was all of COVID. And your miscellaneous is still the 303,000 that it was at the end of February. So that miscellaneous list is unchanged from the month before. And then when we look at our expenses, we have, get to the right spot here. Our year-to-date expenses as of the end of March are at 58% of budget compared to a 75% target, and there's an error on the graph. I will rerun that and get it reattached for you. Those green bars should say 75%. But as you can see, we are still pretty stable with where we were. That might even be the whole wrong graph. Okay, I will get a revised graph to Missy and Marion to re-include. So hang on, let me look back at my notes here. So including encumbrances year to date at 3/31, we were at 64% of budget, and this is for expenditures. We were $1,279,000 lower than 3/31 of 2020 for expenses. A lot of that has to do with grant funding. A lot of things didn't have to be funded out of the general fund due to getting grants in. And then the net impact is that we have a very strong position in the general fund at the end of March. Woody asked me earlier if we have money, and the answer is yes, of course we have money. That doesn't mean we ought to spend it all. So the net impact at the end of March is that overall revenue is $203,000 above expenses in the general fund year to date. And with that, I will take any questions you have other than how I managed to get the wrong attachment on today's agenda item.
Okay, Supervisor Christensen, do you have
Thank
any
you,
questions?
Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the presentation. It's really just a comment, and it's just wonderful that the county's doing well right now, and that we're not drowning or we're having problems or we're in debt. So thanks for all this, and the colors are beautiful. It doesn't matter to me if it's the wrong chart.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
And we did, our 2021 budget books are available. You should have copies. And they have all of these from the past year in them. That was one of the instructions you had given me. So we've started including those in the annual budget book so that anytime your constituent has a question, you don't have to look through Agenda Quick. You can pop open the budget book and find any month you'd like to see.
Thank you. Supervisor Klein?
Thank you, Marion. I figured we had a lot of savings with the grant money, especially Michael's department.
Well, that's still to come. This was only March.
Yeah, I mean, rest of the day is based on Michael's money, so, you know.
Yeah, we're all going to go to work for him.
I think so.
Yes, interdepartmental transfers.
Yeah, just mine.
But anyway, it is good to see, and I'm glad we're kind of ahead of everything right now. And, you know, when it goes to some of that revenue that's coming in, I would hope to think that some of that's based on our website too, attracting a lot of people in Gila County, or holding them in Gila County rather. So I thank you and your department for all that. It's good to see.
Our team is outstanding, and we couldn't do it without good leadership.
Yeah, and we appreciate you giving the presentation so we have an opportunity to know where we're at and to ask questions why we're where we're at. So we thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
And you have a great rest of your day.
You too, thanks.
And moving on, I'm going to go to 3, regular agenda item A, information discussion action to approve the actual monetary distribution of $1,078,003.33 of Gila County's share of federal year 2021 Secure Rural Schools Act funds as authorized through Section 24 of P.L.114-10 for fiscal year 2019 through 2020 as follows: $23,284.22 to roads, $840,172.41 to schools, and $214,546.70 to Gila County Education Service Agency. Mr. Roy Sandoval, good morning.
Good morning. It's good to see you all. It was good to see all the people come to Payson this weekend, and good to see them all leave. We think they left their money.
Yeah, some of it anyway. Yeah.
Okay, so we did discuss this a couple of months ago, and we put it into percentages, and now we just broke those percentages out from what we actually received from the federal government. And as I explained before, we have a formula where everybody ends up with a little bit of money, even those that don't have much Forest Service land in their district. We try and give everybody something. So I can answer any questions if you have them now.
Supervisor Christensen, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I don't think I do. Thanks.
Okay. Supervisor Klein.
Thank you, Roy. No, it looks good, and every year we do this, and we talk about how important the PILT payment is.
Huge.
And so it shows, and that's something as a county we don't want to relax on. But the other thing I was going to have you mention is your Gila County Education Service Agency, in case there's someone on the YouTube that doesn't understand what that is.
Well, it was legislated several years, I'm not sure the year, for us to have a support agency, educational service agency. So we lend support to schools, but as well we run some of the programs, for example, like the adult education program. That comes out of the educational service agency. Now, what is interesting about that, we call it the ESA, is you're mandated to have it, and that's great, but it's sort of one of those unfunded type of mandates where it's not like you're not going to find an allocation from the legislature to county educational service agencies. So if we want to provide support for schools or for like the adult education, you have to do it with grants, or you have to do it with things like this. You really have to find places to get the support, the funding.
And so the big part of that is your GEDs and stuff like that you're willing to, or you can do for the adult education services.
Yeah, so the whole GED program, and I think I mentioned this before, when I was first elected, you could not take a test for your GED in Gila County. There was no testing center. So we had a few teachers, but people had to, the very population that may not be able to travel had to travel to go to Phoenix to take their GED test. So we established those centers, one in Payson, one in Globe, and one at the San Carlos Detention Center, which we have our ESA has a partnership with the San Carlos Detention Center. And while we were doing that, we decided, it's kind of a big process, we decided to take an extra step and have it certified to do the Pearson testing, so we can test in a number of areas, say for paramedics, nurses, real estate agents, all those things are or you have to depend on Pearson testing. So that was actually quite an ordeal too. It's quite a bit of money tied up in meeting the GED requirements and then the Pearson requirements. But as it turned out, for us, during the pandemic, we were the only testing center open in pretty much the western United States. So people were coming from Colorado, they were coming from California, they were coming from Oregon, they were coming from all over Arizona, and of course they were coming from Payson and Globe and the Gila County places. But we felt like, wow, this was a great thing because it was a service. We're all about, we run on taxes, right? And so that idea of being a real service to the taxpayer, we felt really good about that.
Thank you, Roy. That's what I wanted our folks on YouTube to hear. So just in case they didn't know that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Roy.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we don't always tell our good story, and so thanks for opening that. Okay, then if there's no questions, I'll call for a motion.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move to approve the actual monetary distribution of $1,078,003.33 of the Gila County share of the federal year 2021 Secure Rural Schools Act funds as presented.
And I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Item was approved. Thank you all very much. Have a great day. We are moving on to 3B, information discussion action to approve funding agreement number 213-21 between the Arizona Department of Housing and the Gila County Community Service Department Housing Service to provide department an emergency weatherization assistance program for low-income persons. Funding in the amount of $168,230 and low-income housing emergency assistance program funding in the amount of $45,339 to be used to provide weatherization services to eligible citizens residing in Gila County for the period of June 1st, 2021 through, or July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. Melissa, good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Humphrey, members of the board. Today I'm here before you to ask you to approve these contracts for the new fiscal year starting July 1 for our weatherization department. This amount, the LIHEAP funding, the $45,000, is actually carryover from our CARES Act. We expect I'll be coming before you again shortly to shore up that, because we normally get about $200,000. So, but they wanted to make sure that this contract was in place for July 1st, so we could get started on this. So, we leverage these dollars with our weatherization program, our emergency services, and also with our housing rehab.
Thank you. Supervisor Christensen, do you have questions?
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation, Melissa. Appreciate everything you do. I don't really have any questions.
Supervisor Klein.
So, Melissa, you think after July 1st sometime we'll have more money coming to you,
Right,
hopefully?
they'll shore up their budgets, and what's left over, redistribute again, and they meaning Arizona Department of Housing, redistribute again, and then we'll see some more. This last part, the $45,000, is what we call LIHEAP dollars, and the state got another big dose of it under CARES, and then under the latest, can't remember what they call that now, but.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all that.
Okay, Melissa, thank you for all the things that you reach for and are residing over to keep the constituents.
So happy to be on the agenda in this place today. I'll tell you.
Okay, if there's no further questions, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to approve funding agreement number 213-21.
I will second that.
Having a motion second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye, item was approved. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Okay, Michael, you want to bring up a chair? You got quite a few of the next ones.
Just let me know if you need a break during
Just let me
this.
know if, okay, yeah, well, I might need a break before you do. Okay. Going on to regular agenda item 3C, information, discussion, action to approve the Health and Emergency Management Department submittal for a work plan and budget to receive additional COVID-19 funds in the amount of $725,797 for the period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024, that will be focused on vaccine equity activities.
Great.
Mr. Michael Driscoll, you've got, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 of them here, so
I have 7, yes.
there you go.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the board. And before I get into all these items, there's a general theme running through almost all of these except for 2 of them. So 5 of the COVID fundings, if I could just spend about a minute going through how this all comes about, and it'll give you a better sense of the deadlines that they're throwing at us left and right. So
Please do.
typically, so what's been going on is the federal government is sending money through the CDC to the state health departments. The state health departments are required to send a certain percentage of that to the local health departments. So when the CDC sends a large chunk of money, millions of dollars, the state health department spends a little bit of time working with the CDC for deliverables. What does the federal government want for this chunk of money that has to do with COVID? And then once they get an agreement with the CDC, the state usually sends an email to the health department directors and says, we have this chunk of money for you, and we're going to give you 2 weeks, usually 2 to 3 weeks, to come up with a budget and come up with a plan to meet the deliverables. And so we're on a very tight deadline because all of this funding requires basically an application for a grant. Some of this funding comes through what we call an amendment to a current grant. So with our immunization grant, they'll send a chunk of money through the immunization grant, so there's not a new contract that I have to come in front of the board and say, can I apply for this? So that's how they're sending a lot of this money. In other cases, we don't know if it's going to come through a new contract a new IGA or whether it's going to come through an amendment. So the state sort of makes these decisions up on their end with their procurement department, and then they send us an email, and you'll notice I've included a couple of them to give us about 2 weeks to get all this together. So all in all, for these 6 items that deal with public health emergency preparedness or COVID, it's about $5 million is what is on in front of you. $2.5 million is guaranteed money that's coming through the local health department through the CDC, and $2.5 million is a grant we actually applied for through the federal government. That's a competitive grant. So, and then throughout these items, if you hear the word health equity, which you see a lot, that's the code word that the federal government is using. Health equity simply means for Gila County serving the underserved residents of Gila County, making sure that we get to them to give them the opportunity for vaccinations, information about the vaccine, and those kinds of things. So in Gila County, when you hear health equity, it means that we're getting to the remote areas of Gila County, and we're also getting to the 65 and older population of Gila County. That's sort of what the state has told us Gila County needs to focus on. So a lot of this money is going to be spent on reaching out to our community organizations such as senior centers, working with them to get them contracts to just help us get the word out about vaccines and COVID and how to prevent it, where the testing sites are, and those kinds of things. So keep that in mind as we move forward, because that's a general theme that goes through almost all of these grants. So, and the first one, this one, as you notice, I included that in there. We were notified. We had about 2 weeks to get this funding budget plan in, and it's for $725,000. And this is an amendment to our immunization grant, and this is specifically so we can hire what's called a health equity manager and a couple health equity employees underneath that person. So we have one full-time person up in Payson, one full-time person out in Globe to go out to those remote areas, to the 65 and older population, and do some outreach to those populations to make sure everybody has the same opportunity to get the vaccine and get tested. And in a lot of cases, we will bring the testing out to these areas to make it easier. So this funding is specifically set aside so we bring the testing, we bring the vaccines out to these remote areas and the 65 and older populations so they don't have to travel. So we can provide the services basically on site. So places like Young Supervisor and Hayden Winkelman and those kinds of things will be going out to those senior centers and be working closely with them to provide those services. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about this one.
Okay, Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you,
Questions?
Mr. Chairman. Michael? Do you also reach out to the various tribal areas?
No, this funding is does not include tribal because they get their own money.
They do.
So we get $725. They're getting the exact same grant money. I don't know how much they're getting, but the tribes get their separate funding.
Okay,
So yeah,
thank you.
you bet.
Supervisor Klein.
Are we going to be able to find people to hire to do this, to help with this, Michael? And are we going to be able to spend this kind of money?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So one of the struggles we have is unemployment in this country. People are being paid through the federal government for unemployment. So all states, there's a lot of states, and a lot of states are cutting off the unemployment now, are finding out that the businesses are not being able to hire people because they're making just as much money to stay home. So there's been, I think, 23 states that have made changes to that. So everywhere in Arizona, we're struggling to find people. Currently, we have 8 openings, and if we get more grant money, we're going to have many more openings, and we can't find people to fill those slots. So the last item on here you'll see is permission to advertise for an RFP. So we've gotten the rural counties, many of us gotten permission from the CDC and the state to RFP the entire thing out. So we don't have to hire anybody because in one case, and you'll see the deadline is we have to spend about $830,000 by May of next year. We can't do that because we're already looking for 8 people for 8 open jobs. So we're going to RFP that out and make sure the services are provided for the schools. That's the issue for the schools. And we'll make sure that we meet the deadlines and all the deliverables by the state. So it's a struggle, sir, yes.
Okay.
It's a lot of money they're throwing at our way. That
Well, it
we-
is, Michael.
yeah.
It really is. And I mean, and I think your hands are tied how you're going to spend it, obviously. And so I think about that, and I look at the amount of people that you and your department has vaccinated from the beginning. You know, you led the nation in that as far as percentages. So what do we have left in Gila County? I mean, how many? And how many of them really want a shot, you know? And so
I'd say the remaining people, not many. The remaining people are going to be those. We've already talked to a whole slew of people, residents. We've done surveys. We've discovered what we thought was going to happen is the remaining people, they're either going to choose not to get the vaccine, or the ones they're just waiting to make it convenient in their schedule. Like they have 2 days off of work, and they're passing by the Walgreens, or they're passing by CVS, or they're passing by, the pharmacies up in the grocery store, and they'll stop in and they'll get it because they can get a shot. So, and that's what people have been telling us is that, well, when they feel comfortable and it's convenient to them, they'll get it. So I would say we don't have that many people left to really give a vaccine to. So we're going to be going out and trying to gather up the remaining people.
So you mentioned one of your thoughts is the senior centers, using them to help coordinate with some of the seniors in our county. That's a really good idea. Is there any other thoughts like that you had, or?
Fire districts, senior centers, medical, the medical health community that we've built this relationship with during COVID, and it's become a very good working relationship now. Work with them as well to capture everybody, and then one of the $2.5 million grant will go over last, or one of the next ones. That competitive grant will allow a consultant we hire to issue mini grants to the senior centers to pay them money to try and reach out to the community. So it could be beneficial financially for a lot of our partners too, that they're able to get some money to reach out to their residents. And that's what we're hoping. We're keeping our fingers crossed on that grant.
Okay. Thank you, Michael.
Oh, you bet.
Yeah, I will go ahead and move on. Because I was wondering, okay, you got from till 2024. That's why I was wondering if you were going to try to subcontract that out rather than hire someone for a 4-year job.
For this particular grant, we're hiring because it is 2024. And one of the grants you'll see is May of 2022. And we just can't spend that kind of money and try to get somebody in, because that particular grant should start right when the school season starts, and it goes for the entire school year. That's basically August or July to May. And if we don't get this started with an RFP, and get it out right away, we're never going to be ready in time.
Yeah.
And then if you try and find somebody, it's trying to find a person that spends several months trying to train them. So we're already behind the 8 ball.
Right, that's why I was wondering, because trying to find somebody is going to be difficult, but trying to find somebody for a job that's only funded through 2024 might make it a little more difficult.
Temporary jobs.
Yeah, I'll take a 3-year job just because.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and call for a motion if we're finished.
Mr. Chair, I will move to approve the submittal of a work plan and budget to the Arizona Department of Health Services to receive additional COVID-19 funding in the amount of $725,797 as presented.
And I'll second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Item was approved unanimously. Moving on to D, information, discussion, action to approve the grant application for health literacy initiative funding in the amount of $2,571,740 with a $1,750,000 dedicated to local organizations that serve underserved communities, which will be used to address the COVID-19 pandemic in Gila County's underserved communities, with anticipated dates of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2023. Again, Michael O'Driscoll.
Great, thank you again. So this is the competitive grant through Hersa at the federal level that we were called, the health officers were called by Senator Sinema's office back in March and said that the federal government has this pot of money and her staff recommended we take a look at it. So we had discussions with the finance director, Mary Springer, and James Menlove, and decided that this grant was more flexible to work with the community partners as the like the senior centers. This grant was more flexible in getting mini grants for those organizations. So it was a good way to maybe get some money to some of those organizations because there's some roadblocks for audits on the Gila County's end. If we were to get grant money and then we were to issue, I don't even know if it's legal if we can issue mini grants to organizations, not-for-profits, those kinds of things. So there's a lot of roadblocks. So we were given about 3 weeks, and James Menlove, the county manager, and the finance director, and my deputy county manager, Josh Beck, and I all decided this is a good opportunity to see if we could bring in this kind of money and to sort of spread it out to help us with the COVID education component, things like that. So we put together, we got with a consultant, we put together this application, and we haven't heard from Hersa yet, but this is sort of coming in front of you begging for forgiveness, saying we applied for this because we had just 3 weeks to do it, and that's what I'm here for, to let you know that we have applied for this, and if we do get it, I'll be in front of you and give you a plan on how we're going to spend it. And there is a list in this for community partners. It's not a complete list. It was a list of people that we were quickly able to reach out to and signed on to give us letter of supports for this. These types of grants require a lot of letter supports, and we put that together. And then if we do get this funding, it'll be left up to, it's going to be required of whoever gets the contract to include all those community partners, all the senior centers, and work with them to get them the grant money to reach out to their constituents, their community, and talk to them about the COVID vaccine and other issues like that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you. No, I have no questions.
Supervisor Klein.
I think I'm good, Michael. Thank you.
It's a lot of money, isn't it? It is.
It is a lot of money, and I can guarantee you that we have people watching to see how we're going to spend it and everything. And so, yeah. So what? Okay, I do have one. What happens if we don't spend it all?
So it's interesting. I think I was explaining this to Jessica this morning. So there's two scenarios, and the money goes back to the federal government, and they said you can't do it, so we can't go down that road. So what will typically happen is say we can't spend $830,000 in 10 months. Say we just couldn't get the RFP, we couldn't get consultants in here quick enough. At that particular time, when it's about a month before the expiration date, the state health department will go back to the federal government and request an extension, 6 to 12 months. Sometimes it's granted, sometimes it's not. In this case, they've been granting the extension simply because there's so much money. People are struggling to spend it all. So they're going like in 6-month increments as far as doing the extension. So I'm guessing if there's a lot of counties that can't spend this money, they're going to be granting extensions here and there for the next couple years. And that's the struggle, right? I mean, they give us this deadline, and we don't know if the extension is going to be there, so we have to come up with these plans to spend it within that time frame. And then if we do, we're good. But then we're sort of struggling to spend the money, and then all of a sudden they go, well, we're going to give you an extension of 6 months, and you're sitting there going, great, could have told me this 6 months ago, right? So it's sort of frustrating on a lot of levels.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael.
Oh, you bet, sir.
Okay, I have no questions.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I could ask a question. This particular item and the next two items have a June 30, 2023 date, May 31st, 23, in April 30th, 23. Is there a specific reason why there's, instead of typically the money that's coming out now is June 30, 2024, as it was in C?
There is no rhyme or reason at all to this. What grants have the expiration dates? We haven't been able to figure it out. When the CDC sends money to the state health department, they give them the grant time frame, and you could see it varies on almost all of them. It's sort of a paperwork nightmare. I mean, we're doing a great job maintaining it, but we have no input and we have no idea. Like the one I'm going to go over soon with the 830,000, 10 months, really? I mean, come on. I mean, they just throw those dates out there, I think, and hope for the best.
So these are all dates that have been dictated by the CDC?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. If there's no further questions, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd make the motion to approve the grant application for a healthy literacy initiative funding in the amount of $2,571,740 as presented.
I will second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Item was approved unanimously. Moving on to E, information discussion action to approve the grant application for health disparities initiative funding in the amount of $576,203 that will be used to address the COVID-19 pandemic in Gila County underserved communities with anticipated dates of June 1st, 2021 through May 31st, 2023. Again, Mr. O'Driscoll.
Great. Thank you again. So this is another one of those grants that we're notified very quickly that from the state that it was coming our way. I think we were notified on April 7th and had to submit everything by the 16th. So it's 2 weeks. And so if you remember the previous item, that $2.5 million came from the federal government, Hersa. This funding comes from that same pot of money, but it's a non-competitive grant, and all that means is the federal money, the federal government gave the state health departments this money from that same pot, but they gave it to the state health department saying give it to the local health departments. That's the difference between the two, is the 2.5 is a competitive grant. We don't know if we're going to get it. This 567 comes from that same pot of money, but it came through the state health department, and they basically said, here it is. You get $567,000, and you're going to go ahead and spend it on the health equity and health disparities as well. So I just sort of wanted to clarify where the pots of money are coming from. There's a lot of pots of money it's coming from, but these two are very similar. One's competitive, one isn't. And so this addresses the same thing, going out into the public, working with our community partners to make sure anybody out there in Gila County has access to the vaccine, testing, those kinds of things. So it's sort of a redundant pot of money we use on very similar things, but a lot of this is a lot of PR, a lot of outreach too, so we're going to go ahead and use it for that. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. It's a lot of spending on some of the very similar things, and so we have to make sure that we don't cross over into the grants, and we could pick and choose some of the deliverables for this grant and that are not exactly the same on this grant. So there's a lot of cross-pollination. They all want the same thing, but we have to go about it in many different ways.
Thank you. Supervisor Christensen, questions?
Yes, sir. Michael, is there any room for purchasing actual equipment or anything with this money for, say, contagious disease response?
Absolutely.
For the future, to where we actually would have something physical at the end of this?
Yes, it can be, and we've already bought it. So we have a warehouse full of PPE. We have hazmat suits. We have all sorts of things that we were allowed to buy and get from the state health department through the pandemic. We've purchased medical equipment with some of the previous funding that this board has approved. Those sit at the hospitals. We've purchased, a very high-end medical laboratory testing equipment for COVID that are sitting at some of our medical partners. Dr. Michaels, I believe, has one of our Abbott machines up in Payson. as well as Cobra Valley has another one. So yes, we're absolutely preparing for another, making sure that we are prepared in the future if we have another wave. Because a lot of this funding is being given with the assumption or with making sure that we prepare for another wave, whether it's COVID or something else. So absolutely it can be used for that. And we are trying to figure out, we have things purchased already for COVID, for testing, for serology testing, for everything. And we've worked with our community healthcare partners to give them what they want. We've worked with the schools to get them CLIA waivers. A CLIA waiver is basically a school nurse is now, we work with the school nurse to work with the state health department to get a waiver that they could give these tests to school kids and their nasal swab if a child comes in. Those literally are a medical procedure that required a certain type of license. There's a lot of waiving of these licenses and training going on, so we're getting them all the test kits. We're getting them all of the training that's necessary. So we're prepared for COVID. Now, if there's another type of pandemic, another type of virus out there that comes, obviously the equipment we're purchasing for COVID may or may not work for that particular virus. But yeah, we could purchase. If you have any ideas, I'm more than willing to.
Well, the idea I had was if we're going to these more rural and inaccessible places to serve the underserved, then we could have vehicles for doing that in, a platform like a van or a ambulance type vehicle that can go and stay in one location for a while.
It's funny you mention that, Supervisor. So I have a little bit of a story to tell. So one of the grants we're going to go over next is an additional. That very next one is an additional what's called ELC grant. You remember the $1.6 million a while back? This is an additional $800,000 for expanding laboratory capacity, is what they call it, providing for testing equipment. This round of funding, the second round of funding, specifically has where we're able to purchase a vehicle for exactly what you said. So our first submittal to the state health department included a vehicle. We got all the facilities. Fleet helped us get the bids and everything else, and we were moving forward with that. And then we got notification from the state health department. All counties applied for a vehicle because it's a lot of money and we all need an extra vehicle for exactly what you're saying. And we got word back from the state health department that the state auditor generals would view that unfavorably. And I don't know what that means. I'm sure Mr. Menlove knows that better than I do. So the state health department took out all vehicle purchases. So no counties are allowed to purchase a vehicle with that funding. So yeah, there was money in there for a vehicle, but we're not allowed to move. We're not allowed to choose that in our budget. So it's a little frustrating, but yeah.
Or trailer or anything.
Yep, we're looking at a trailer, mobile. We're looking at mobile vaccination trailers to get a price of them. They're pretty pricey. Some of this grant money.
We got a lot of money to spend.
Well, I can't buy it with this grant money, but I have other money, immunization money that we're looking at that is not tied as tightly as this and is scrutinized by the Auditor General.
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
Yeah. And then you're going to pull it with your car because you can't buy a truck to pull the trailer. Golly, federal government
Yeah,
makes
it's
a
like
lot of
buying
sense
buying a boat and having a Tesla, right? Well, come on.
Yeah. Okay. If there's no further questions, I'll call for a motion.
Is it my turn? I move. Yes, it is.
We're on E.
We're on E. Okay, thank you. I will move to approve the grant application for Health Disparities Initiative funding in the amount of $576,203 as presented.
I'll second that.
Having a motion a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Item was approved unanimously. Moving on to F, information discussion action to approve the Gila County ELC Enhancing Detection Grant application in the amount of $839,579 that will be used to continue to address the testing, disease investigation, and contact tracing efforts for the ongoing COVID-19 endemic with anticipated dates of January 1st, 2021 through April 30th of 2023. Mr. O'Driscoll, you're still on.
Thank you again. So this 840,000 is basically an extension of that first $1.6 million. That $1.6 million expires in February of this next year. So this is going to start, and it's going to run for 2 years. So this money is going to keep the testing facilities, like we rented a facility, an office complex up in Payson, where we do serology testing, Binax Now testing, nasal swabs, those kinds of things. So this money is going to be allowing us to pay the rent for those kinds of things for the next 2 years. And it's also going to be paying for part of our salaries. Some of our general fund staff are working on COVID, so this grant funding will continue to allow us to pay for about half of their salary, like my deputy director, half of his salary, those kinds of things. So this is good salary savings to the budget, which is good, but this is just going to extend what we're already doing in Gila County that $1.6 million already did. So if there's another surge, we're able to ramp up right away and provide the vaccines. And this is going to be free testing for any resident of Gila County. It's going to be made readily available north, south, in the rural areas. We're going to make sure everybody, we work with the schools to make sure that they get the tests that they need. So this is just an extension of the ELC that expires in February of this next year. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you. No questions.
Thanks.
Me neither, Michael.
Can I quit now? Oh my goodness.
No, I'm good.
You're good. Okay, well, I'll call for a motion.
Mr.
Do you
Chair,
want us to not approve any of these? You know,
sounds like we don't have a choice, does it? I'll make the motion to approve the Gila County ELC Enhancing Detection Grant application in the amount of $839,579 as presented.
I will second.
having a motion second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item was approved unanimously. Going on to G. Information discussion action to approve an intergovernmental agreement contract number CTR 055209 with the Arizona Department of Health Services in the amount of $204,367 to enhance current public health emergency preparedness activities for the period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2026. You're still on, Mr. O'Driscoll.
Great, thank you. So this is a very easy one for me. So this is just renewal of our FEP contract to just keep with our FEP services that we've had for many years in Gila County. It's level funding, and the contract expired, so this is just a renewal of that contract. The irony of this, we're getting millions of dollars over here, and our public health emergency preparedness contract stayed the same. I can't figure that out. But it's level funding, and we're excited to ask level funding because sometimes after a pandemic, some of these contracts will go down because they don't have enough money. They put it somewhere else, and we're getting a lot of money over here, and I thought that this might go down. But this is going to allow us to keep our public health emergency preparedness program up and running for the next 5 years.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Christensen.
questions,
Comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Klein?
So, Michael, you know, with fire season on top of us now and with all this coming down, as a department, are you sitting in a good place to administer all this and keep it going?
Yeah, so our emergency management program, we have 2 employees, Carl and Justin, and they're handling everything beautifully. Carl has been through, I think since he started, he's been through more fires than an emergency manager in Gila County should have gone through. So yeah, they have it handled. It's not going to affect our fire season at all. The Red Cross is opening up their sheltering now to congregate setting because they're done with COVID as well. So that's going to make it easier for us. So yeah, we're really good on the emergency management side.
Thank you.
You bet.
Mr. Minlove, do you have a question?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the amount 204,367 to be spent by 2026, June 30, Does that mean we are only getting $200,000 for the 5-year period, or $40,000 a year, or?
No, that's
This is
200
an annual
Yes.
amount?
Yeah, it's an annual. I apologize if that was unclear in the item, but it's $204,000 each year for 5 years.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no further questions, I'll call for a motion on G.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve an intergovernmental agreement contract number CTR 055209 with the Arizona Department of Health Services in the amount of $204,367 annually as presented.
And I will second that.
Having a motion second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye, item was approved unanimously. Moving on to 3H, information, discussion, action to approve an intergovernmental agreement, contract number IGA 2021-081 with the Arizona Department of Health Services to provide the Gila County Oral Health Cavity-Free Program for the period of July 1st, 2021 through May 31st, 2026. Again, Mr. O'Driscoll.
Great, thank you. I'm super excited about this program. For years, I've wanted to bring oral health, children's oral health, into Gila County. There's a very big need, and good oral health is directly linked to life expectancy. Poor oral health, you live a shorter life, and the best time to get oral health is when you're a child. So we have a grant that's called the Maternal Child Health Program. So what this is I went to the state health department about 6 months ago and asked if we could redirect some of that money into this program. So this is not additional funding. We're already getting the funding. It's just a different way to spend the money into a different program. And they signed up for it. We're excited. We're going to hire a dental assistant, and they're going to work with a dental hygienist to go into all the schools and offer all the children and their parents sealants and fluoride treatments free of charge. The state will pay us $70 per child, which is super good. But the best part of this is us getting into the schools, and it's going to be free of charge to the parent and child. So we're not going to be billing insurance companies or anything like that. It's going to be just to provide this service. And I'm super excited about this program, and I'd be happy to answer any question.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you. Sounds like a great program. Thank you.
Same goes with me, Michael. Good job.
Thank you.
I just have one question. Going into the schools, is there a facility at the schools to be able to perform these activities?
Right, so-
And if not, does some of the funding go to help the school to have a place to do these kind of things?
So part of the funding the state's allowing us to spend is to purchase the mobile equipment needed to go in there. So so how it's going to work is the dental assistant can't do the work unsupervised. So the dental hygienist, up until about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, in the state of Arizona, a dental hygienist couldn't do anything without the direct supervision of a dentist. So that changed about, I'm guessing, 4 or 5 years ago. So that sort of opened this up to us, to the underserved areas, the rural counties of Arizona. And so the dental hygienist is going to we're going to make sure the dental hygienist we're going to contract has the proper mobile equipment. And then the dental assistant is going to work with the hygienist in the schools, and they're going to both work together to provide the services.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Oh, you bet.
And if there's no further questions, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make the motion to approve an intergovernmental agreement, contract number IGA 2021-081 with the Arizona Department of Health Services as presented.
Second?
Having a motion second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Item was approved unanimously. Moving on to 3I, information, discussion, action to authorize the advertisement of request for proposal number 052420, sub-grantee for COVID-19 school wraparound support service, and to accept the Gila County ELC School Reopening Grant Award in the amount of $828,927 for the period August 1st, 2021 through May 31st, 2022. You're getting close, Michael. I think this is the last one.
Last item for this meeting. Just wait till the next one. So this particular one is, like we discussed, we're going to have a difficult time spending this because this is the one that has to be in place in time for school to start and has to be spent at the end of the school year. So this I'm asking to go out for RFP, to go ahead and begin the advertising process for that. There's no way we could spend this money unless we went ahead and did that. But I would like to at least publicly acknowledge Jessica from the county attorney's office, James and Mary and her staff. This was the quickest item for a request for proposal we ever worked on in Gila County. And it went very quickly, and a lot of people did a lot of favors for me to get this on so quickly, because we really need to sort of get this in place before school starts. And we're going to RFP this entire thing out, so I don't have to really worry about spending the money in 10 months. And this wraparound services, they're calling basically working with the states, with the school districts to provide testing if they want weekly, right? We have the capability of doing that. And the consultant will be required to work with all the schools and all the superintendents to provide the services that the schools want, right? Because each school district is going to have, each superintendent may want something different. So it's being a liaison between the schools and the state signed a contract with a company called Genco, and they're providing weekly testing in the schools. And then this consultant will be required to do follow-up contact tracing if there's positives and those kinds of things. And then work with the parents if the parents have a hardship because their child gets positive COVID, and they have, it's being allowed to provide services to the parent to make that easier for them. Housing costs, those kinds of things. This contract will allow the consultant to go ahead and provide those services directly to the parents, which is super nice. But this is asking to go out to advertise for the RFP, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Michael, for all the presentations today. I have no questions on this.
Supervisor Klein.
Michael, with all the money that's been thrown out with all of this, do you see any problems in anybody even trying to get the contract to do it? I mean, do you think you'll attract some people through this process to do it?
So it's a good question. So one of the struggles we're finding is I don't think we'll have difficulty having consultants apply for this, right? But I may be wrong. We're finding it difficult to find consultants because they're making a lot of money out there. And so just to give you an example, I've reached out to a consultant that specializes in public health emergency preparedness, and she told me, get to the back of the line. You know, she has 3 or 4 other counties that she has on contract, and she can't handle any more work because she can't find any consultants to bring onto her company. So it's one of those things where I'm hoping we're going to get. I think with this amount of money, it should attract people to apply for this, but I can't guarantee it because we are finding it difficult. We have about 7 or 8 consultants. I would say about 4 or 5 years ago, we started with only 1 consultant in Gila County. So we found 6 others. So we work with 7 or 8 different consultants, but several of them already told us that they're too busy to consider some of these things. So, and it's feast or famine. Most of this funding is going away in 2 years. So the consultants are making a lot of money now, and then they'll have nothing in about 2 years. So it's sort of, I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Good idea. Thank you, Michael.
You bet.
Mr. Menlove, you okay? Okay. Well, my hat's off to you very much for dealing with COVID, and congratulations on the national recognition on COVID.
Oh, thank you, sir.
And I hope in the future you'll have national recognition for spending money.
I don't want this. I am dreading the scrutiny.
I think this is going to be a whole lot bigger handful than actual COVID was.
Oh.
So my hat's off to you for hanging in there and reaching out for all of these grants, and the attitude to put it where it needs to go. So thank you very, very much.
You're welcome, sir. I'm dreading the Auditor General. Put it that way.
Oh, we'll be fine. Just get an extension. Yeah. Well, thank you very much. And if there's no further questions or comments, I'll call for a motion.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I move to authorize the advertisement of request for proposal number 052420.
I'll second that.
Having a motion second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Item was approved unanimously. Thank you very much,
Thank you for your time.
and thank you for your energy going forward.
Oh, can I do a mic drop now?
You can. You can. Yeah. Poof. Okay, 3J, information discussion action to authorize the advertisement of request for seals proposals number 05242021 annual newspaper contract to solicit bids for an annual contract for all advertising publications and print required to be done or made by all departments of Gila County government for the period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. Mary Springer, good morning.
Good morning, Chairman, members, supervisors. As you recall, last year we switched the annual publishing and advertising contract to a fiscal year. So this is per statute. We have to go out every year and solicit for those newspapers that qualify underneath that statute. So we're asking your approval to go out to bid for those services.
Thank you. Supervisor Christensen, questions, comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mary, this is just to get pricing, competitive pricing from the newspapers so that when we do advertising, we know what we're paying at that time.
Yes, Chairman, Supervisor Christensen, yes, it's pricing for the whole year for the entire county for legal ads and publishing, that kind of thing, with the newspaper, which becomes our newspaper of record. So when we publish things going forward, July 1 to June 30, when they say published in a newspaper of record, it's that newspaper that gets awarded this contract.
How many newspapers are there?
I think that qualify. I believe there's 2, but possibly 3. They have to be in Gila County. So it can't be the Arizona Republic or the Prescott, whatever. It's got to be a county newspaper.
Okay. Thank you, Mary.
Supervisor Klein,
I'm good. Thank you, Mary.
on this proposal, is it like per word, or are they just supposed to guess at what we're going to do for a year, or?
Mr. Chairman, it's by inch, by,
Okay.
yeah. When we put it out to bid, we give
Okay.
them a sample that they can figure out what that cost would be, so we would get it back.
So we still kind of have a control of what we're spending because we know what it costs per inch of advertisement.
Correct, it's per column inch.
Okay, good, thank you. No further questions. I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd make the motion to authorize the advertisement of requests for sealed proposals number 05242021.
Second that?
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Item was approved unanimously. Thank you. We're moving on to 4, consent agenda action items. Any matter of the consent agenda will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed and voted upon as a regular agenda item upon the request of any member of the Board of Supervisors. Does anyone care to remove anything from the consent agenda item and discuss it?
No, sir.
Supervisor
No,
Klein?
I'm good.
Okay, then I'll call for a motion on consent agenda items A through F.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move to approve consent agenda items 4A through 4L.
I'll second that.
Having a motion second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Items on the consent agenda item were approved. On 5, call to the public. Do we have any public in Payson that would care to address the Board of Supervisors today?
No, sir.
I see no one here to address us. Do we have anyone on YouTube that would care to address the Board of Supervisors today? Not today. Okay, well, we're hopeful someday. Okay. If there's no call to the public, we'll move on to 6 at any time during the meeting pursuant to ARS 38-431.02K. Members of the Board of Supervisors and County Manager may present a brief summary of current events. No action may be taken on information presented. Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Probably the most significant thing that's happened to me this last week is my youngest granddaughter turned 2 years old. So I was able to have a bowl of ice cream. And then something else is we've been working on the Fossil Creek situation. We had a meeting last Wednesday, and a long-awaited letter from the Yavapai Apache Nation has arrived giving their consent to work on the various projects that we want to do in Fossil Creek. And that's a huge, huge thing. You'll notice as you read through the letter, they present a history of actions that they disliked in the past, along with the fact that they see now that we need to move forward from those. And so it's a very long-awaited. I want to give everyone, I know Woody's worked on it, Tommy's worked on it, we've all worked on it, and so it's been a team effort. I want to make sure everyone knows that we've been working hard. And that's only our second meeting, so we will be having more to come. That's all.
Good. Supervisor Klein.
Well, I want to congratulate Steve on that because this is a big thing for the county, especially our search and rescue folks, the sheriff's office, and whatnot. I know that they had a rescue just not very many days ago off in there again. They went off in there like 6 miles, and pulled someone out. So it doesn't end. People, same thing, people traipse off in there knowing what they're up against and knowing they're not going to be able to walk out there, and they go to the bottom anyway. It's amazing to me, but so this is a good deal. Chairman Huey's a very good guy, and that's a good deal. So on Wednesday, I attended the local Workforce Development Board annual joint meeting of the Workforce Board and the supervisors from Apache, Navajo, and Gila counties. So for supervisors that was there was myself, none from Apache County, and 3 from Navajo County was what was there. It was a good meeting. James brought up some issues there that I believe we got settled and everything. I am the chairperson on that board, and I've got a lot to learn about that board. So I'm getting there. It's been slow, but I'm getting there. But this was a really good thing. Hopefully, I've got one more year as chair on that one. Hopefully next year we can pull it together even a little tighter and maybe get Apache County supervisors in there and get more participation on that. There's a lot of information there. Has to do with all of our workforce needs between Gila County, Navajo County, and Apache County. And Melissa, thank you for your input as well. Melissa's been a part of that too for a while, so that was good. Thursday, May 27th, I held a meeting in Payson. I invited just some local community members, and we had about 15 folks there. And some of the topics I discussed, first one right off the bat was the Second Amendment. We still have a lot of people pushing, wanting us to declare this county as a Second Amendment county. So we had a really good discussion about all that, and talked about it. I got to hear their side of it, as well as they got to hear my side as why we went the way we did. But that's done. So if it's up to the chair to go from there, but. We talked about the recreational marijuana, the fire ordinance, and veteran issues, and I gave them an update on the admin side in Young. So it was a really good discussion. Just a handful of folks, so we were able to keep it on track and kind of down the right trails. On Tuesday, June 8th, Mr. Walt Blackman will be visiting Young, and he's going to be discussing some of our local issues there. One of the real important ones is the school funding issue that our school superintendent, Roy, and a whole lot of other folks are working on right now. And so he's going to get to have a presentation presented to him on that. He'll look at the North Road. He's been down there before, so he already knows how rough it's going to be when he comes down. And then we'll give him a admin site tour, and then I'm hoping to give him a demonstration of that fire sprinkler system that Kent Hume had put together in Payson a year ago. So we're going to incorporate all that with him right there, and then have probably just a few folks gather up, talk to him about political issues and stuff. Last Sunday, I was in Bear Flats at an HOA meeting in Bear Flats. There was about 30 people there. Really good meeting. I enjoyed it. A lot of nice people. We talked about different things as well. Fire issues, they're concerned with fire in there, all the way to how do we get to stock our trout back in the creek. A lot of people in the woods. There's a lot of people up and down the creek fishing that day, sitting in the middle of the bridge fishing and everything else. But so it was a good turnout. I really enjoyed it, and not the best of weekends to be going to Bear Flats, but I made it anyway. Mr. Chair, that's all. Thank you.
I'm going to turn it over to James because I always forget him. Mr. Minlove, do you have anything for us today?
Nothing further today, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I don't have a whole lot. I'll be holding a Tonto Basin meeting tonight at 5. I enjoy my public meetings. District 2 team meeting Wednesday. Roosevelt, we're going to have a dumpster day Saturday, June 5th to help people out there. And I'll hold a Roosevelt community meeting on the 14th, and I'm still trying to get on the local radio. They're going through some construction that they're waiting to get their construction finished before we can start having our live broadcast on the radio, but still trying to schedule that for local so people can call in rather than having a meeting like we used to have at Tri-City. Due to COVID, Tri-City Fire Department said that they would prefer us not having a meeting there to bring public in for COVID. And those meetings were getting where they weren't extremely well attended, so we're going to try to still get on the radio once a month locally so that the local people can address me with their issues or those kind of things. And so that's about all I have, other than, on the Second Amendment, I have received an awful lot of petitions. And so I have asked Mr. Minlove to maybe bring it back up for another work session. We went through it once. I think it's time that we maybe look at that again here in the future. And so that's about all I have. And so we will carry on. We're going to number 7. We have a work session today, and 7A, information discussion regarding review of draft policy number BOS-FIN-119, discretionary funding application and agreement. Mary Springer.
Good morning.
Hello again.
I have to tell you that this draft policy was like birthing an elephant because it's taken over a year. We've worked with the Auditor General's office for the last couple of years, and discretionary funding comes up in our audit findings. And so I've had to answer the last couple of years that yes, first of all, it started out that we had no agreements. We weren't following our policy. So there was an economic development policy in place. So last year we did start doing agreements that answered part of the question, but not the entire finding. So we worked diligently with County Attorney's Office, Jessica, and what you have before you today is a draft policy. And as our practice is, we come to you as the board to review what we're proposing as a policy. And then in the future, at another board meeting, we'll come back and ask you to adopt the policy. So I'd like to just kind of go over the policy with you. So the purpose is to provide Gila County Board of Supervisors and staff to allocate discretionary funds to nonprofit organizations, community agencies, cities, towns, and other governmental agencies to support local needs by providing economic development services and activities in the communities. And so this applies to like all the cities, towns, local governments, nonprofits. And so every year we do budget the discretionary, what we call constituent funds. We do budget them, but we don't actually list by name every agency that you have felt that the need to contribute to. Some we do, like the Pinal Gila Senior Citizens. We identify them by name in the budget, but a lot of the constituent funds we don't, and you guys decide how to spend those throughout the year. So by economic development activities means any project, assistance, undertaking, program, or study, whether within or outside the boundaries of the county, including acquisition, improvement, leasing, conveyance of real property, or other activity that the Board of Supervisors have found and determined will assist in the creation or retention of jobs, or will otherwise improve or enhance the economic welfare of the inhabitants of the county. So the way we've put the policy together, it's a policy, but it's kind of a procedure as well. The Board of Supervisors will determine at a board meeting that the contribution is for the benefit of the public and will assist in the creation or retention of jobs, or will otherwise improve or enhance the economic welfare of the inhabitants of Gila County. And the activity is operated and maintained within the boundaries of the county. And the contribution is made to either a governmental agency or to a nonprofit corporation which enjoys and maintains federal tax exempt status, as long as all monies are utilized for the purpose determined to be public by the board. And so throughout the year, there's many different agencies that you hear from that want contributions. So it's up to the board to determine whether or not you're going to fund those and come at a board meeting and discuss the funding of it. It also lends to the more transparent process that what you're doing is for the good of the county, good of the citizens, good for economic development, and it's presented at a board meeting. So kind of the walking through the process, we have an application that was part of the packet that you received, and it asks up front for that organization to provide a letter and to fill out that application, because as we go through and we get funding requests that you forwarded to us, a lot of times we don't have a copy of their 501c3. We don't have a copy of their updated W-9 form. And some agencies have said, well, we've applied for exempt status, but they don't have it back. So it does, by them filling out that application and providing it with a letter to you, it tells you what do they want to do with the funding, what's the benefit to the county. It crosses all those T's and dots all those I's, so you can see that in detail. And then the other thing on the policy, which we have been doing kind of behind the scenes, when you fund any of the nonprofits or the other municipalities or government agencies, at the end of the year, I send a letter to them asking for them to tell us, did you spend the funds the way you requested? That's kind of transparent to you, but to the auditors, it does close the book on it and says they did what they said they're going to do. There's a caveat in there that says if you didn't, then you need to return the funds to the county, because that's part of their agreement. So in this policy, we list the different organizations, contributions to the different types of organizations. And thank you to Jessica, because she has done a lot of research as far as the different types of organizations. She's met with other counties and got their input. So she's done a lot of investigation in this whole policy. But we talk about contributions to the arts, services to persons with disabilities and aged individuals, foster home care and children with disabilities, burial of deceased indigents, and other funding designated by you as the Board of Supervisors. And then it walks through what our responsibilities are as far as being financed, making sure that from start to finish that we know that the funds were executed as you asked for, and that the organization did spend them the way they were supposed to. And then there's a reference in the back of this policy of all the different revised statutes that it touches. And then included, not only is there a application in your packet, there also is it's a sample agreement, and we asked Jessica to take a look at that and make sure that it complied as to form, that it had the right language in that contract. So that's a sample that we're moving forward should you decide to adopt this policy at a later date. Those are the documents we'd be using. And that's all I got for you, unless Jessica or James have.
Not at this point, but we will go into an executive session, and I do have some words of advisement for you at that
Okay,
time.
thank you. Supervisor Christensen, questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mary, this is pretty similar to what I know I'm doing already, right? I noticed there is a list in here, type of funding request. So, and there is something that says other. So you're just trying to have them check something off there or come up with the reason they're asking for the funding.
Yes.
Yeah, and that needs to, so that's where things are getting tightened up, is what they use the money for.
Correct.
And having to show a benefit somehow to the county in the various ways that are described. So it's, I'm glad I don't have to make those decisions. I just pass it off to you, and you guys figure that out. So,
Well, and moving forward, that role shifts to you with this policy as a board.
how's this different than the current policy?
The current policy, when you get a request, you send everything to me, and we send that agreement to the firm, the organization that's asking, and we get them to sign it. Then we send it to the county manager for his signature, and then we cut the check. And then a year later, I follow up with a letter asking them if they spent the funds the way they're supposed to. Going forward with this policy, each one of you that had one of those requests would bring it to the board, and you as the board would approve that contract, the agreement.
So each, why would we need to do that?
Mr. Chairman, I think these are probably legal questions. The reason we're going into executive session, we can get that legal advice from our county attorney. It would probably be appropriate to get the legal advice, and then if there are further questions, follow up on that.
Okay, I have no further questions.
That answered your question.
Well, kind of.
Supervisor Klein, you want any questions that you're going to have to ask later anyway?
I think you know what to expect from me on this one, don't you, Tim? Mary, I want to say thank you for trying to put something together. I don't really like it. I'm just going to tell you that straight up. I really don't. I really don't like to where if it's in my district, I'm the one that approves it, not the other two. If there's a request in my district, you know, if we're talking about Well, I have a question, I guess, up front. When we talk about discretionary funds, we're going to be talking about our constituent funds as part of this, right? That's part of it. Because in this, it says like there's going to be $1.5 million put together for discretionary funding. That's what I read in this draft. So that includes our constituent fund, the 300,000?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Klein, it's up to, that's part of the statute. That isn't what we have, but that's wording in the statute that you have the ability as the board to do that.
Oh, I thought I read it in this as
No.
a draft.
Well, it's in there, but it's in the statute that you have up to, we don't budget anywhere near that.
Right.
But that language comes right out of the statute.
Right. There's parts of this I should clarify myself on that I don't mind. You know, I like transparency. I don't have anything to hide, you know. But I don't, when it comes to my district and the way that these constituent funds has been handled for all these years and what we're using them for, which I think is legit, I don't care for this. That's where I'm at. Now, if there's something we can put together, and I look at it a different way too, is if we come into this boardroom with a big old long list of requests, we're going to be here for a while going over those requests. It's going to take a while. And a lot of them may only be $500 requests. And then I go back to the big fight we had with the web page, our design. Remember that? We were going to put all that money into it, and that's one of the reasons Jeff had a problem with it was what are we getting back in return? He was throwing it out there like we're breaking the gifting clause is what it was. We're saying no, we'll get it back in return. I remember that battle when it happened, you know. So there's a lot to this policy that I really am looking forward to listening to what Jessica has to say behind doors, because as I read this one, and correct me if I'm wrong, do we have a policy even in place right now that deals with discretionary funding? Or have we just been doing it like we always have all these years?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Klein, we have a policy that is not adequate. So in dealing with the Auditor General, part of the my responses to the finding is that we would review, revise, retool the policy so that it's compliant with the Arizona revised statutes, which I don't believe the old policy really is. So moving forward, that's why there's been so much work on the part of county attorney.
Yeah. So, I'm looking really forward to the executive session. But I do want to thank you for drafting this, because we do need to start somewhere. I don't disagree with that. So that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Christensen, you were going back to your books. Did you have something else to add? Or
No.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
No, and I thank you very much for the presentation, and I realize that you guys put a lot of hours and thought and things into bringing it before us. And so when something comes up that like or don't like or really concerned, it concerns me because I know you guys think it's the best way to go before you bring it to us, whether we think it's the best way to go or not. And so I as well as am looking forward to the executive session. And so I believe, Mr. Minlev, did you have something to add to this work session?
Let's go ahead.
Okay,
Get
well,
the legal advice from our legal attorney.
Okay, well, the thing of it is if we don't have any further comments or anything to add to this work session, then I'm going to move on. And so I'm going to call the work session over, and I'm going to go to 8, executive session item, information discussion action to vote to go into executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A3 to engage in discussion or consultation for legal advice with the attorney or attorneys of the Board of Supervisors regarding draft policy number BOS FIN-119, discretionary funds, and So I'll call for motion
So moved, Mr. Chair.
and
I
second.
will second that.
Okay, I have a motion second. All in favor, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We'll take a 5-minute break before we meet in executive session, and I'll see you in there in a minute.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if everyone is present, I will reconvene today's, oh, okay, well, hold on. Are we ready? Are you ready on YouTube? Okay, we will reconvene today's board meeting, and I will call for a motion.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I will move that we direct staff and those involved with the discussion that we just had in executive session to move forward so that we can review a policy in the future.
I'll second that.
Having a motion, a second, all in favor, do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. I will adjourn today's meeting. Thank you.